Good evening, everyone. We'll get started. So I'll begin with the Indigenous Territorial Acknowledgement. We would like to begin by acknowledging that the land on which we gather, land on which we are broadcasting from today, is the land traditionally cared for by the Haudenosaunee, Anishinaabe, and Chinootan people. We also acknowledge the enduring presence and deep traditional knowledge and philosophies of the Indigenous people with whom we share this land today. And for a moment of reflection, at the beginning of this council meeting, we pause to think about the needs of our community. May we show wisdom and compassion in all our decisions. Council will start with a disclosure of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof. Seeing none, I'll look for an approval, mover for the approval of the minutes, moved by Councillor Freeman, seconded by Councillor Wright. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. So that brings us to staff reports, and the first one here is Kitchener-Waterloo Siskins 2025-2026 license renewal. There's no presentation, so council, does anyone have any questions of staff for this? Let me just, sorry, I'm just checking my own notes here, Jill. Nope, everyone's good? Okay, great. Thank you very much, Jill. And just want to be clear, this was, this was the operational impacts of the Siskins. Sorry. Okay, so I need a mover and a seconder for that. Moved by Councillor Rowe, seconded by Councillor Roach. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much. So the next item is the Carnegie Library Museum Use Feasibility Study update, and we do we have a presentation for this? No. Okay. And this, so council, are there any questions about the library, the Carnegie Library? Councillor Wright.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. I am just wondering if we could chat for a minute about, beyond the feasibility study, we will be looking at heritage conservation requirements going forward for that building. And I'm just wondering if you could flesh that out a little bit. What does that look like? What does it entail, determining what those requirements might be for a collection?
Through the mayor to councillor. A lot of that heritage preservation is looking at the actual building and what it needs, kind of general upkeep to bring it back to today's standards. The existing brickwork needs some repointing. The basement foundation is old stone. We have to do some investigation to see what kind of waterproofing or work needs to be done around that to preserve that. The roof's recently been replaced, so that's a big cost that's taken care of. But it's really just what needs to happen to the facility itself in order to preserve it and maintain its heritage status.
And then if I can add through Mayor McCabe to Councillor Wright, from a museum and collection standpoint, of course we'd be looking at the glazing, the windows need upgrades as well to be able to bring the collection in, and then what the HVAC upgrades again with regards to for us to be able to bring the collection in. It is not unusual to have collections in heritage buildings and adaptive reuses like this. There's lots of examples out there for us to draw on best practices, and throughout my 30 plus years in this business, and I've done a couple of adaptive reuses. The last one I did was the Stratford Normal School in Stratford, where the museum moved in there. So it is very much achievable from that aspect of maintaining for collections and also for exhibition use.
Okay, thank you. The reason why I was asking was because, sometimes the interior atmosphere and the humidity controls and all those little things become determinants of whether you can even bring in a collection or borrow a collection. So yeah, I was just trying to get at a little bit of that detail, so thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. Councillor Rowe.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Thank you so much for the report. And I just wondered if you can unpack for me a little bit beyond the feasibility study, looking at the financials, and maybe just unpack how we would be looking at that, like one big renovation? Are we looking at it in pieces? If you could just go into a little bit more detail.
Absolutely. Through the mayor to Councillor Rowe, one of the things that we have when we've been meeting with potential grant officers, advisors, one thing that became quite clear is that because we just had this initial assessment with a minimum and a maximum, that we really needed to kind of to drill down and get a more detailed report. So then that will allow us to bundle renovation costs. For example, we know that we need to upgrade it, an elevator is going to be needed, and then we will now know what the elevator cost will be for specifically the type of elevator we would need to go into the space, and then we would be able to go out to a grant agency, for example, for that. Again, for some of the heritage attributes, where we may be able to look at how we can phase it over a period of time so that it isn't such a one big upfront cost. So that is our strategy for funding this project.
Thank you, that's helpful. And I just have one more question. I actually didn't think to ask before, but I was curious about, and I'm sure I already understand, but the storage on the main floor and the exhibition space on the second floor. If you could just go into a little bit more
Certainly, and
detail.
I'll also probably have my good friend Heather help me with the answer on that one. So through to you, Councillor Rowe. When we were looking at the layout of the building and where we could maximize a big box, for example, for the exhibition space, the top floor was the one that afforded that most flexibility for the museum's uses. Once you get down into the other floors, because of the roof trusses, I believe, that we would be able to have a clean, open, big box up on the top floor. The middle floor is being looked at, or the first floor, for collection storage, and then the basement, which would then be our programming space. So that's where that decision, looking at it from where we could save some money without taking out columns and adding structural beams and all kinds of other upgrades to the building.
Thank you, that's helpful.
Thank you, Councillor Rowe. Councillor Freeman.
Through you, Mayor McCabe. My question is with regard to the procurement process, and it was more of a comment. When we get into heritage buildings, they are often challenging and require a really special skill set, people that understand heritage preservation as well as structural engineering, HVAC, mechanical, all that kind of thing. And I know that we saved a tremendous amount of money by using qualifications-based selection to do the work at the library on similar renovations on existing structures. So I'm really hopeful that staff could consider qualifications-based selection for this as opposed to a regular RFP process.
Through Mayor McCabe to Councillor Freeman, we will actually be grading, having a scoring criteria for that heritage expertise as part of that scoring process, and it will be kind of a requirement within that. They have to have a heritage expert within their team in order to bid on this process. But it is going to be a score-based RFP that's going out, and we are going to really highlight the importance of that heritage expertise and make sure they have the heritage qualifications in order to back their design as well.
Yeah, I think maybe I'll leave this with you to think about, because that's not that's not what qualifications-based selection is. It means that still requires us to set a terms of reference, whereas with quality-based selection, we don't set a terms of reference for the RFP. We only base our decision on qualifications, and then we let the professionals set the terms of reference for the work that needs to be done. And it literally it saved over $500,000 on the library. And I think there's real value in this very complex environment with a building of this age, with the goals of what need to be achieved in terms of air quality, humidity management, all of the pieces that go with library collections, I think we should really rethink that. And I'm just gonna leave that with staff because I'm really uncomfortable if we set a terms of reference for this work as part of the RFP. And I meant no disrespect.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Freeman. I see heads nodding there, so they're in thumbs up. So they'll take that as direction to look at that past procurement process and see if there's a way to apply it to this situation. Are there other questions from council about this? I just have a couple of questions. Some of them have already been answered, so thank you, councillors. I'm just wondering if, so for the sake of myself, who is a newer member of council, could you, because I read the past two reports from 2017 and I think 2021 about the Carnegie Library. Could you just kind of walk us through the history of it? Because one of the reports I read said that it initially was being proposed as a data mine and looking for a totally different purpose. Maybe having other partners in there to use the site. And now we're looking at it for the museum. So I'm just wondering if you could just I'm not sure who could unpack the history a little bit.
Yes, well, probably, so I was around when it was being proposed. Actually, even before that, there was a discussion from, in the early 2000s about the Carnegie Building potentially becoming a museum when my predecessor was around. Then it was being used for other purposes. Yes, Habitat for Humanity went in there, but I was also around when there was discussions around council and with staff where it may have become a data mining hub, I believe. And then that kind of didn't take off, and it's kind of been really a hard building because Habitat was in there for a brief period of time, and then there was an ROI out for its use, and then we did make an application during that process in 2020, like during the pandemic. It was awarded to another group that unfortunately was not able to sign the contract. And so then it was left again where this building has been sitting vacant basically since 2014. And because the museum had expressed an interest in looking at it and exploring it as a new location for us, that's when we came to you to ask to do the reassessment, and then this is where we're at today.
Okay, thank you. It's an interesting history, which you as a
as a longtime staff member.
Well, I just meant you as that you manage the museum. You were obviously history's your thing. Okay, thanks. I think it's just helpful to kind of remind us that this building has sat empty for just over 10, maybe 11 years now, and that's not good for buildings. It's not good for buildings to sit like that. But we also know it's a real treasure in the community as well. The other question I had was around, if we find the money to do all this renovations that are needed, will that, and you are ultimately successful in moving into it, how would that change, or how do you anticipate that changing the operating costs of the library, like in terms of the hours or just the overall operation of it?
You mean of the museum?
Sorry, did I say library? I'm getting
library.
Carnegie Library and museum mixed up.
I know,
sorry,
that's
sorry.
So at this point, we would probably, there would be some operating impact. There wouldn't be a lot more because while we are increasing the square footage slightly, the benefit is that we will have our own programming space on site. which is something that we've been lacking at our current location. So I think it's an opportunity because we haven't been able to do this next little bit of growth where the public is, and then the community is asking us to do these things, that we can be more integrated, and certainly with our friends actually at the Waterloo Public Library, which we do a lot of collaboration with. I think it would be a really great fit for the neighborhood and for the collaborative partnership and programming that we do. So I think there's ways that we can work together with the library to help, where we would help one another and be able to have a robust program together. Like I said, there will be some, hopefully, funding that we'll be able to reallocate within our operating budget, because if we're successful with the other part of our request, which is the off-site storage piece, where we won't be paying rent, to have all this off-site storage that we currently are renting, that will then be applied to our operating budget to help us out with that way and offset some costs that way.
Okay, thanks. And just, that's helpful, thank you. And I'm just curious, like, and I know maybe, I don't want to get too far ahead of the process because we still have to do some work before, but is it through the federal government? Like, where are some of these grants that you might be seeking to help, like with big things like the elevator and just the general maintenance and renovation that's needed there? Where are these grants from? Is it provincial, federal, or foundations?
There probably would be a combination of all. The majority through the Cultural Spaces program is where we would be our first target, our first stop, and working with them because they do look and do this type of work with museums, galleries. So that would be our first stop. But there are other programs that we've been discussing with the program officers at Cultural Spaces that they have put us in touch with as far as looking at what the requirements are and how we might be able to apply it to this project.
Okay, great. Thank you very much for that information. Seeing no other questions from council, I'll look for a move. There's 4 recommendations there. I'll look for a mover and a second, moved by Councillor Freeman, seconded by Councillor Roach. All in favor? That is carried. So thank you very much to you both. So that moves us right along to the formal public meeting. Let me just, sorry, just a sec, there we go. Okay, so this is a formal public meeting to consider item 8A, Official Plan Amendment 59 and Zoning Bylaw Amendment Z2415, TJMT Enterprise, 354 King Street North. Any persons who want further notice of this application, including the passage of any bylaw, should sign the appropriate register in the binder located on the desk at the rear of the council chambers. Will the clerk please advise council on the method used to give notice of the meeting and the dates notice was given?
Notice was advertised in the Kitchener-Waterloo Record on May 22nd, 2025, and mailed or emailed on May 15th, 2025, to all property owners within 120 meters of the subject property and to public agencies. An informal public meeting was not held.
Okay, thank you. Our planner, Janine Fletcher, will now give a brief overview of the application. Welcome, Janine.
Good evening, Mayor McCabe, members of council, city staff, and members of the public. As noted, this is the formal public meeting for Official Plan Amendment 59 and Zone Change Application Z-24-15 for the lands located at 354 King Street North. The subject property is located between King Street North and Regina Street North, just south of Columbia Street West. The property has an area of approximately 0.37 hectares and is currently occupied by a 2-story multi-unit commercial building with surface parking. To the south are low to medium rise residential buildings, which are zoned to permit 25 stories in height. To the east of the subject lands are 3- and 4-story residential buildings alongside the east side of Regina Street, as well as commercial buildings just south of Columbia Street. To the north are commercial buildings, with McDonald's being directly adjacent to the subject lands. To the west are several high-rise residential buildings, up to 25 stories in height, along King Street North. The properties to the west side of King Street are within the University of Waterloo major transit station area and within the Northdale neighborhood. The property is considered a through lot and has frontage on both King Street North and Regina Street North. The existing building is proposed to be demolished to facilitate the proposed development. There is a significant grade change across the site, between King Street being the highest point and the grade sloping down towards Regina Street, with an approximately 2.5 meter grade change between each frontage. So a closer look at the development. The proposed development is a 24-story apartment building with 185 units, with a mix of 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units throughout the building, for a total of 277 bedrooms. The development is also proposed to include 3 commercial units on the ground floor and second floor, with approximately 640 square meters of commercial space in total. The building will contain 186 vehicle parking spaces within structured parking and 118 bicycle spaces. The building is proposed to have approximately 2,700 square meters of amenity space, including a large amenity terrace above the podium. There are driveway accesses proposed off of both Regina Street and King Street. The applicant is proposing approximately 16% landscaped open space on the site, and a pedestrian promenade is proposed along the north side of the property, which will accommodate the grade change on the site and provide a pedestrian connection between King Street and Regina Street. To support the development, the applicant proposes to change the official plan designation to mixed-use, high-density residential and remove the property from specific provision area 44. This change from corridor commercial to high-density residential will allow for additional flexibility to provide residential uses. The height and density contemplated in the official plan will remain the same at 81 meters. The applicant is also proposing to amend the zoning bylaw by changing the property to residential mixed use 81, which permits a 25-story apartment building. They have also requested site-specific regulations, which I'll discuss on the next slide. And I will note that the holding symbol will be applied to ensure a detailed noise study is prepared and implemented prior to site plan approval. Specifically, off-site noise mitigation measures relating to the McDonald's have been identified in the preliminary noise study, and those will have to be implemented. This image is a rendering of the building from King Street North. Various site-specific zoning regulations are required for the proposed development. The podium will be set back 7 meters from the King Street property line, whereas the maximum street line setback is 6 meters for at least 75% of the building. The landscaped open space is reduced from 30% to 15% at grade. Staff note a provision for an additional 15% landscaped space on the terrace above the podium has been added to the site-specific regulations. Provisions to permit exterior stairs, ramps, and retaining walls within the front and side yards. Provisions to permit ancillary commercial uses on the second story. This is due to the grade changes on the lands and to add flexibility for additional commercial space. And finally, the commercial parking rate will be reduced from 3 spaces per 100 square meters to 2.7 spaces per 100 square meters. And the residential parking rate will be reduced from 0.9 to 0.8 spaces per unit, plus 0.1 spaces per unit for visitors. Having reviewed this application and considered all comments received through the process, staff would recommend that council approve the staff report, adopt the official plan amendment 59, direct that the effective date of OPA 59 shall be the day after the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing decision on OPA 58, and approve zoning bylaw amendment application Z-24-15 as I've outlined. My colleague John and I are available to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Janine. Council questions? Okay, Councillor Rowe.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Thank you so much for the presentation. I wondered if you can talk to me a little bit about the landscape reduction. It is a significant reduction, and I know in the report there was a comment that although at 15% it is double what is there now, with the difference, of course, being that this will be a higher density residential building. I just wondered if you could give me a bit more information about the 15%.
Through Mayor McCabe to Councillor Rowe. They are proposing a fairly significant reduction, although they were originally proposing 27% on their original application. Upon further review by staff, there's been some amendments to the landscaped open space definition. So our technical review identified that about 16% actually meets the requirements of the definition now. So we provided for some flexibility there. There are some other spaces like some walkways and things that don't count towards the definition, but they are being provided on site for some extra pedestrian connections, and there's some significant spaces that can accommodate some large trees and items that help justify that reduction.
Thank you, that's helpful. I do have another question. And I'm wondering about delivery vehicles, Uber, etc. And is there a plan, like I'm wondering if the drivers are expected to go into the site, or sort of what that could look like?
Through Mayor McCabe to Councillor Rowe. They are proposing 19 visitor parking spaces as well as 19 commercial parking spaces. They are also required to provide a loading space. All of those have been proposed in the structured parking and will be available for those visitors and deliveries and things of that nature. We can identify through site plan some additional recommendations to try and be able to accommodate that traffic on site for those short-term items.
Thank you. My concern being vehicles stopping on King Street and just for a minute, right? Okay, thank you. I do have a couple other questions, but I know that my colleagues do as well, so I'm fine to move on.
Okay, we'll go over to Councillor Freeman.
Thank you, Mayor, through you. Thank you for your presentation and for the report. I haven't gone through the site plans in detail, but I wondered if there'll be dedicated right turn in, right turn out onto King and Regina Street, or is it a full turning movement on the transportation? Because it's not really shown here.
Through the mayor to Councillor Freeman, I will defer to my colleague John to help answer that question.
Can you repeat the question?
Whether there'll be restricted turning movements in and out of the property onto King and Regina to prevent that left turn out onto King Street.
For sure. Through you, Mayor McCabe to Councillor Freeman. The plan is there'll be two-way direction left and right turns onto King and Regina in both directions. And that was accepted by the region as part of the review for both driveways.
Okay, that sounds very complex given the fact that there's a bike lane there too. I'm just a bit worried about that, to be honest. So I don't know what we can do about that if the region's accepted
Through
it.
you, Mayor
Go
McCabe, to
ahead,
Councillor Freeman, the region will comment on the site plan application, and they will
Okay.
do another review at that stage.
Okay.
Just to make sure it's efficient. And the region is also looking at this section of King Street to see what it needs, especially with the intersection to the north in close proximity and safety factors with bike lanes, bus stops, all those other factors. So the region is aware, and there could be some further changes that happen.
Sure. And kind of building on Councillor Rowe's comments, there are challenges along, in particular, Columbia Street, with Ubers basically parking in the bike lane and so on, even though that property was also supposed to have like dedicated access for short-term vehicle pickups and drop-off. And so I hope that can go back to site plan too, and even if it has, like, I think we even signed Columbia Street, like, no stopping, and they stop in front of the no stopping signs. So I don't know what we can do about that, but I think it's a real concern.
Again, through Mayor McCabe to Councillor Freeman, thanks for those comments. We'll look at it during site plan. It is also something that we're looking at broader and for all developments in the city, as we're looking for more infill development like this to occur as part of our parking strategy to see how do we manage these deliveries, because they're not going anywhere. We need to be able to make sure that they're handled safely, and we'll look into that as part of that study as well.
And I guess the last question is with regard to the podium is all commercial, is that correct?
Through Mayor McCabe to Councillor Freeman, the podium is not all commercial. There is parking accommodated in there. The first floor and the second floor are commercial. I believe the podium is 6 stories though, so there are residential units in there as well.
Well, I want to reiterate, I think this is one of the requests is to have an updated noise and vibration study, and having residential that's next to a McDonald's in my ward, I can tell you that noise from that holding and idle emissions from the queuing into the drive-through is a real problem with residents that are at or near, I'm going to call it the impact zone for lack of a better way to describe it, but I'd really like to head that off at the paths. If we need to have noise buffer balconies in a portion of that or whatever that looks like, I think we should just get it done at this point.
Through Mayor McCabe to Councillor Freeman, the holding symbol has been applied. There will be a detailed noise study required. The applicant is aware that there are some off-site mitigation measures, and they've already started working with that franchise owner to the north. So they are aware of those issues, and that will be dealt with through site plan.
Yeah, power washing at 2 o'clock in the morning is really noisy.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Freeman. Thanks, Janine. Councillor Bodley.
Excuse me. Thank you. Through you, Mayor McCabe. Do we know what the square meters of commercial space is currently on the site? Since they're asking us to convert from commercial to residential, they're going to keep 640 square meters. Do we know what it is currently?
Through Mayor McCabe to Councillor Bodley, I believe the existing building is about 1,200 square meters of commercial space, and they are proposing 640 square meters right now in their development. They can explore some additional opportunities once they get to the site plan stage to try and accommodate more commercial on site.
Okay, that's great. Thank you for that. And then my other question is related to the pedestrian piece from King to Regina here to the north. And as has been alluded to, the McDonald's is on the north side there, and there's a significant grade change. In fact, that much of that pedestrian walkway there is going to be shielded on one side by a very large retaining wall, which brings forward some septed concerns for me. So I'm curious if there's been any conversations about lighting on that trail or any other crime prevention sort of review as we look at that pedestrianization of that space.
Through Mayor McCabe to Councillor Bodley, that has been identified as something that will need further review through the site plan process to identify some opportunities for lighting and prevention that we can do through that area.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bodley. Councillor Rowe, I believe you had some other questions? Oh, sorry, did I miss someone?
No, I'm just unsure if Councillor Wright has anything before I move on.
I'm okay. I'm going to save my questions for the, yeah.
Okay. Councillor Rowe. No, that's okay.
Thank you. I actually do have a question about wind conditions. I've noted in the study that there are some uncomfortable locations due to wind. So I'm just wondering what mitigation measures are being considered, or will that also be at site plan?
Through Mayor McCabe, I will defer to John on that question.
Thanks for the question through Mayor McCabe to Councillor Rowe. There will be further review as part of the site plan application to decide what other mitigation measures are needed based on the final design of the building, and that could include baffles or even this tree planting, and just the massing of the building can have some significant impacts. And so that'll be something we'll be looking at during the site plan piece. And the applicant may be able to just talk a little bit more about that, and their architect is here, I'll note, to provide that for council's awareness for some of those other more detailed questions.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rowe. Are there any other questions for staff? No? Okay, thanks very much, Janine and John. Appreciate that. I will now ask any registered delegations to come forward. I have Richard Kelly Roots and Hugh Handy from GSP Group. Is that correct? Welcome. You have 10 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor McCabe, members of council, public, and staff. My name is Richard Kelly-Ritz, and I'm a planner with GSP Group. I'm here on behalf of TJMT Enterprises for their development application at 354 King Street North. I'll just introduce as well some members from our project team who are here this evening. So we have Hugh Handy, Vice President, GSP Group. We have Nadine Nandy from ABA Architects. And we have our client, Quang and his family, here this evening as well. So for my presentation this evening, I'll keep the details pretty high level, and I'll aim to complement some of the content that staff provided, and just provide a little bit more of a detailed overview of some of the specifics of the development application. So things like unit mix, building elevations, floor plans, parking, etc. So as we know, the site has a through lot, 354 King Street North. It's got an existing two-story commercial building. It's located just south of the McDonald's site at King and Columbia, and is bounded by King on the west side and Regina on the east. And our client is proposing a 24-story mixed-use building with about 640 square meters of commercial space across 3 units, and 185 dwelling units with a 5-story structured parking podium at the base of the tower. Moving into some specifics on unit mix, so shown on the right side of the screen here is a typical floor layout of the proposed building. So in this case, typical stories 7 to 23. Across the building as a whole, there's a mix of units with 112 one-bedroom units, 54 two-bedroom units, and 19 three-bedroom units. So as shown on the floor plan, the larger unit sizes are typically shown on the outside corners of the building, with the one-unit dwellings in the interior of the hallways. With respect to amenity space, the programming in the building is divided across 3 key components. There will be private balconies or terraces for each of the units. There'll be an indoor common amenity space, so a fitness room or a party room for residents to use. And then there's an outdoor terrace on top of the podium of the building. So that's shown on the left side of the screen here, which would be on the King Street side of the building. So that would be a terrace for residents to use as an outdoor space. In total, there's about 2,700 square meters of amenity space proposed within the building. There are, as noted, 3 commercial units proposed for a total of 640 square meters. 1 commercial space is on the King Street side of the building. on the street frontage. The second is on the side of the building, so in that promenade space between King Street and Regina, and I can show an elevation of that shortly. And then the last commercial unit is on the Regina ground floor level. Moving on to the building elevations. So this is what the proposed building will look like from King Street looking towards the building. So starting on the top left, there'll be the 24-story residential tower. And moving counterclockwise, you can see that outdoor terrace proposed on the roof of the podium. 2 levels of structured parking beneath that. And moving to the ground floor in King Street, we'll have the lobby entrance, what we're calling Commercial Unit 3, that'll be facing King Street, as well as the parking garage entrance. Note here on the left side of the building, it's not quite shown on this elevation though, is the start of that promenade that goes from the King Street side to Regina. And that is shown here in a rendering view. So this space will provide a pedestrian connection from King Street to Regina. It'll be primarily walkways, ramps, steps, and some bike parking. Will provide just a better link between both sides of the building. This is the elevation from the Regina Street side. So again, starting in the top left, there'll be the residential tower, 2 levels of structured parking, and then the ground floor is that parking garage entrance and the commercial unit facing Regina Street. And then on the right side of that building along the promenade is the second commercial unit. In terms of parking within the building, there are 5 levels of structured parking. 2 are at or slightly below grade. And then there are 3 levels of elevated parking structure. The parking has 186 spaces available, with 118 bike parking spaces split roughly evenly between indoor bike parking spaces and outdoor bike parking. In terms of the technical studies completed in support of the applications, I won't cover this in too much detail, but there was a typical full suite of studies completed. Happy to expand on these as needed during any questions from members of council. So just to wrap up, it is our opinion that the proposed development represents good planning as it provides an efficient intensification opportunity on an existing site, contributes to the range and mix of housing options within the city, and also one that is transit supportive, being located adjacent from an MTSA along the King Street corridor, providing sufficient bike parking and a parking reduction as well for vehicular spaces. More generally speaking, we're of the opinion that the proposed development aligns with the city's goals for transitioning this area over the long term from more auto-oriented uses to a high-density mixed-use development, and one that is appropriate and compatible with the surrounding area. With that, I'll conclude my presentation and happy to take any questions or comments. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Richard. Okay, Council, we will look to see who has questions. Councillor Wright.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. This is such a great location. It's a location that I pass on a really regular basis, and so like others around the council chambers, I've had a chance to see what its challenges are, as well as appreciate the opportunities here. I'm wondering about this pedestrian corridor along the north side of the property, and I'm just wondering if you can share a little bit about how users might be shielded from the wind along there. On the north side of the building, it has the potential to be really uncomfortable in the winter months, and there is a transit stop right by the McDonald's, and so I'm just thinking about that and how deeply uncomfortable it might actually be if it's not, built for comfort.
And through the mayor to you, Councillor Wright, just to clarify, you'd be speaking to the pedestrian promenade between King and Regina? Yes. So as part of the application, there was a wind study completed, and I believe there was around 50 or 60 kind of samples that they've done throughout the proposed development in terms of simulating what it might look like under wind conditions. So I don't recall specifically, I suspect there was, if there were locations identified here in terms of testing for wind conditions along the promenade. I do know that the only areas that were identified as being of note from a wind perspective were on the rooftop terrace, so on the 6th floor above the podium. There were no other locations identified from a wind perspective. So I can confirm further as well with respect to the promenade here, but I believe that the wind study did not identify any other issues.
Okay, that would just be interesting to know. Like it looks like there's some sort of screen and retaining wall, but you know, because of the elevation going on. But it would be interesting to know what that will actually be like and what the protection is basically for pedestrians using that route. One of the other questions I had is actually about the terraced space. So I was wondering if you could show us that in your presentation again. And again, I'm thinking about the wind tunnel effect on King Street. And just because, again, this is on the side of the building that is adjacent to King Street, I'm just thinking about how powerful that northwest wind is. And so just wanting to have some sense of what the screening might be like on that amenity terrace.
Through the mayor to you, Councillor, yes. The wind study took 3 different sample points along that terrace, which again on the screen here is shown on the left side facing King Street. There was a sample in the top third of it, the middle third, and the bottom third. And so the bottom 2/3, so the lower portions, were acceptable from a wind perspective. It was that top portion that had higher wind counts, just being more exposed, as you noted. So that type of detail is going to be explored through the site plan process. The consultant who completed the wind study provided some recommendations in there for types of things that could be programmed into the space, whether it's like wind walls or other barricades that would help make that space more suitable during use. So those are the types of things that our client would be able to explore through the site plan process and hopefully mitigate that for future residents.
Thank you for that. And I just have one more follow-up question. I'm thinking again back to the adjacency to the McDonald's, but also because there's a lot of waste that flies around on that section of King Street from adjacent properties. Sometimes it's really pretty egregious. And so I wouldn't want that promenade to just become a garbage tunnel. So I'm just wondering if there's any site locations where there might be mullocs or other property, like if people are going to be using that promenade and it's adjacent to a fast food restaurant, I'm just thinking about the potential for a lot of waste to collect there.
Through the mayor to you, Councillor Wright. Yes, I don't believe it's gotten to the detailed design stage in terms of garbage receptacle placement, but yes, absolutely hear you on that perspective, given the promenade's location to the fast food next door, and just if there's been pre-existing issues of debris in the area. So certainly something we can take away and consider that at the site plan stage.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor. Other questions from council? No. You're already asked and answered? Okay. Just a quick question for me. There's existing tenants in this building now, correct? So what would the plan be for the existing tenants?
To you, Madam Mayor, yes, there are existing tenants. And just for council's information, our client's timeline is likely construction in the next 2 or 3 years in terms of starting construction. So until that time, the plan is that they would continue to be able to occupy that space. Our client has maintained open lines of communication with those tenants. So as far as I know, they're generally very aware of the proposed development and can take that into account as well. In terms of the plan during construction, presumably they would have to relocate during that time. So those details would be worked out beyond that in terms of whether there'd be an option for them to come back into one of the spaces. Some of those things would just have to be worked out by the businesses at that time, and our client's happy to work with them through the process.
Okay, thanks for that. And just my other question is and it may be for staff actually, there's the site beside this site. There was a house there that was recently torn down maybe last year, and some construction has started there. So I'm just trying to get a sense of how close will those two buildings be, because I understand on the other site, like that, there'll be some height added to that building as well, so, like, how close are the setbacks from the different properties? Or what are you, like, and to, like, Councillor Wright's questions around wind and that, like, how will that be impacted when there's two tall buildings there?
To you, Madam Mayor. So I'm not entirely sure of the setbacks for the proposed building next door. In terms of how close this building will be to its property lines, and I believe you're speaking to the building or the lot right to the south, that's
Yes.
on King Street?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, so the proposed development here would be, its podium would be 5 meters from its property lines, and the tower of the site here would be about 10 meters or so from the property lines. So not sure if staff would have any additional commentary on the neighboring property setbacks.
Thanks.
To the mayor, I believe the property next door is 4 or 5 stories tall, so it won't be a 25-story building as of right now. I believe that's the proposal. So it won't be a tower right up to a tower, and I believe it would have similar setbacks to this site.
Okay, thanks for clarifying that. I was just, I didn't realize, I thought it was a taller building that was proposed there as well, but that's helpful to know. Okay, I don't see any other questions, just double checking. Okay, so there's no other questions. There's no more delegations. Sorry, are there any other, is there anyone present tonight who wishes to speak to this application? Sorry, did you put your hand up?
I'm just curious if you have another delegation.
Pardon me?
You said that you don't have another delegation.
No, I was just, I'm asking if there's anyone who wants to speak to this planning matter. Okay. So if there's no one, if there are no more delegations, this formal public meeting is concluded and the application is now open to council for a motion and debate. I can talk to you after, ma'am, if you, because we're still dealing with this planning matter right now. Okay? Okay, so so council, are there any, go ahead, Councillor Rowe, do you have additional questions, or are you looking to move this?
I'm looking to move the motion.
Okay, so this is moved and looking for a seconder, seconded by Councillor Roach. Any other comments or questions?
I think
Oh, sorry, right, you have to, still getting used to the process.
Oh, I hear you. Okay, yes. I move to approve the application, whereas council has considered all written and oral submissions, and whereas council has considered the professional opinions of planning staff. Therefore, be it resolved that council approves staff report IPPW 2025-039, that council approve official plan amendment 59, OPA 59, TJMT Enterprise Limited, 354 King Street North, in accordance with Section 7 of Staff Report IPPW 2025-039, that the effective date of OPA 59 shall be the day after the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing decision on OPA 58. That council approves zoning bylaw amendment Z24-15, TJMT Enterprise Limited, 354 King Street North, in accordance with Section 7 of Staff Report IPPW 2025-039.
Thank you, Councillor. So that's moved and seconded. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much. And I heard, I think it was Richard said that there's the plan right now is to start construction in a couple of years, 2 to 3 years. So so thanks for letting us know about that. But we of course always encourage people to move as quickly as possible on these projects, because we know we need the housing. Okay, so there's no consideration of motion from a previous meeting. There's no notice of motion. No correspondence and communications, no unfinished business. Council, are there any questions of staff? Seeing none, okay. Any new business? Councillor Freeman.
I just wanted to bring it to council's attention that tomorrow night there's a public meeting related to a change on Lexington Road between Davenport and University Avenue associated with options for active transportation investments there. And I know that Councillor Vasic and I think it's in our schedules, we're both probably planning to attend, but I thought there's other folks on council that might be passionate about that corridor as well, and I just thought I'd let you know that it's happening. I doubt Jen and I will be there for the whole time. Like, I'm not trying to mess up quorum or anything like that. But I just thought I'd let people know about that. It's on Engage Waterloo as well. And the other thing I just wanted to reflect on, if you'll allow me, is that we asked questions about pedestrian wind today, because I think that's really important when it comes to talking about a livable city and a city in which pedestrians feel comfortable walking within that pedestrian space. And the Bill 5 changes are looking to remove pedestrian wind studies from the official plan and zoning phase of applications and moving those to site plan. And while I appreciate that staff, have expertise and so on, but at the same time, I think we're called as councillors to actually look at that public realm and to comment on it. And so I'm really worried about changes to Bill 5. I know that we made comments about the aspects associated with natural heritage and the environment and all of that kind of thing, but there's a whole lot of more pieces in here. There's also pieces around removing requirements for industries to get environmental permits. And that, again, that really speaks to our public realm and livability as we look at infill development, where we bring more residential uses closer to industrial uses. And so I don't know if there's more that we'd like to do on that as a council, but I just wanted to raise it to everyone's attention as we consider development applications, and if we feel as though there's more for us to comment on that.
Thanks, Councillor. And I will note that I don't think that staff did, I guess it would have been a couple of weeks ago, staff did send comments to the environmental registry on Bill 5. So I don't know if people have had a chance to read those, but there's some helpful comments in there. And yeah, there is a lot in Bill 5 and a lot of things that we'll really have to look carefully at the regulations and continue to work with our elected officials at the province to really be mindful of what's happening there, because there's, changes to, there's a lot of changes in that, in particular like species at risk, and it goes on and on. So yes, thank you very much. Good points, Councillor Freeman. Any other new business? Yeah, Councillor Vasic.
Thanks, through you, Mayor. I just wanted to recognize the community and staff for these long-standing events that happen in our community and how they're becoming staples. So last weekend there was the Book Fest by KW Writers Alliance in the square. And even though it was kind of cold and crummy weather, it sounds like it was really well attended. I think people look forward to it every year. Yeah, it was great. I made it at the end of the day for a bit too. So big thanks to the KW Writers Alliance, but also the Create Waterloo Arts and Creative Industries team, who do a lot with very little. And as well as this week coming up in my ward is the Croydon Southwick Barbecue, which is their 31st year this year. They have a pig roast and games and great time. And then the Lincoln Heights Yard Sale is now also becoming a staple in the neighborhood. So thanks to the neighborhoods team for making all of that happen too.
Fantastic. We do have great neighborhoods team. Sorry?
I also want to do a shout out to staff for the open house.
Oh, yeah. I'm pretty sure someone's gonna, yeah. Councillor Wright.
Yeah, I'll do that extra shout out because I stayed until we presented the check to Food for Kids. Yeah, so huge shout out to staff for the Service Center open house and its 30th anniversary. It was beautiful weather. It was so fun to roam around and see how delighted people were with, having a look underneath the hood at the city. And I have to say the snowplow art is really always a big bonus. It's now the cover photo for my council Facebook page, one of the snowplows blades. So I look forward to next year. And I think we pulled off over $2,000 donation to Food for Kids.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that, and I know they were still counting the donations that come in afterwards via the QR code, and so it was a pretty stellar gift to Food for Kids. So thank you so much, staff.
Yeah.
Oh no, she was still going strong.
Carrie had
Brings
a lot of
energy.
Carrie
to
had a
that
lot of
MC
mom
role.
jokes. No, I think we all echo that. It's a tremendous event, and we know staff really pour their heart and soul into it, and have been doing it for 30 years, which is just incredible. And there was people I met there who said they remember coming as kids, who are now coming back again as adults with their families and that. So it really is just a tremendous recognition of staff, like the importance of the work that you do and how much it means to people, and how, and it's a great learning opportunity for people to see just how complex and widespread the various services that the city provides are. Anything else, Council? Councillor Rowe?
Yes, I actually just also wanted to mention the city pride celebration in Waterloo Town Square on Wednesday, and that was such an excellent event. And I think, or I feel that in these times of such concerning rhetoric, etc., that it's so amazing to be part of this council and this city that prioritizes diversity and inclusion. And so I thank staff for organizing that, and I was so happy and honored to be there and be part of it.
Thank you. Yes, I think we had a tremendous showing from council and senior staff and other members of the staff team as well. So well said, Councillor Rowe. Anything else from council? Nope. Okay. So enactment of the bylaws. Moved by Councillor Bodley, seconded by Councillor Freeman. And adjournment moved by, oh, sorry, all in favor. Just trying to get to game 3. Just a quick reminder that there's a big screen in the square right now for game 3 of the Stanley Cup Finals. So hope maybe some of you are heading over there after. So adjournment, we need moved by Councillor Rowe, seconded by Councillor Bassick. All in favor. That is carried. Thank you, everyone.